Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to eHeroes. Today's eHero is David Brown, and we're going to actually talk about his book, From the Bottom Up. So welcome, David, and thanks for being here.
Well, thanks, Rob. I greatly appreciate the time to be on eHeroes. I've been looking forward to it.
So, I know this book is a couple years old, but, there's still a lot of stuff in here that most entrepreneurs don't know, and, it'll help them. But what was the inspiration to write the book?
Well, what had happened is when I worked for the insurance companies, I'd always had pieces of the business plan and used it in different things. And they come out 4 or 5 years before I retired and says, we want a full-blown business plan from every agent. I said, okay, no problem. I just took everything and brought it all together, polished it up, and I got my business plan all done because it was all there.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the newer agents, they're stopped in to see me and they said, I'm so nervous. I don't know how to write this plan. What do I do? So we just started talking. After about 2 hours, answer my questions, and I say, well, but how do I write my plan? I say, you write down what you just told me for the last 2 hours. That's everything that's in your business plan. And they looked at me and says, you ought to be teaching this stuff. Well, the light bulb went on, and I sat there, pen to pencil. I said, all right, if I can teach rather than teach it, let's write it. And my goal when I wrote that was, this is a step-by-step guide, plain and simple, without big words like delicatessen, as one of my college professors used to say. And as it's something that's more of a reference book than anything else because you can follow it and write your plan without a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
From that point on, I started doing it a little bit here and there. And then when I retired, I had spoken with a couple guys. Brad Zales was one of them, and he says, well, we're going to keep you on track. What's your timeline? So every Friday, I had 3 of these best known guys out there calling me on Friday and say, all right, where are you at this week? Are you meeting this? They hold my feet to the fire, and we got it published, and away she went.
I interviewed Brad, I don't know how many months ago, but, it was just a fun interview because he's a serial entrepreneur and he knows his stuff. And he recommended that we get together and I'm just looking at these books going, this is just simple stuff. It's not complicated, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs forget the common sense. They forget that business plan. They forget the, writing it down and scheduling it and looking at their options. And I don't understand why. I think maybe the internet has made things a little easier for them. They think they can just jump on social media and they'll have an instant business, but that's not how it works.
No, and I've talked to many. Well, I got it in my head. I know how to run a business. And I says, okay, let's think about that. I said, we're bombarded by at least 5,000 marketing messages a day.
Mm-hmm.
Daily life on top of that. I says, if my plan's in my head, it's long buried. I says, so I have to have it written down. And they said, well, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Well, it's easier. It's here in front. You got people that you can share it with, hold accountable. It's just, I can't understand why so many people don't, but they hear that thinking it's this great big plan that they have to write. And so I think a lot of it's intimidation on what it actually is.
Before we got on this call, I was telling you that, one of my first clients, I wrote a business plan for him, and this was back in 2001. And they actually used that plan to go to the bank to get a $150,000 loan for their business. One of the things that I incorporated into that business plan was a non-disclosure. That the banker, when he signed it, he had to sign that non-disclosure so he didn't disclose that business plan to his, my client's competitors, because it was a small town and there was a lot of other people that did what my clients did. And they didn't want the banker to spill the beans. And the banker was so impressed with that non-disclosure agreement that he gave him the money. He goes, I've never had to sign anything like this before, which was kind of cool. But, I think we as businesses maybe don't have proprietary information, but we still want to be able to protect our plans so that we can expand so our competitors don't know what's going on.
Well, and that's it. And I've seen, and I love it. I just wrote that down to make sure I include that in my. It's a things that stand out.
Mm-hmm.
At one restaurant I wrote a plan for, and it was kind of funny. He took it up. I gave him everything he needed, all the supporting documents to match up where we come up with all these numbers at, and he forgot to take that to the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So he's sitting with the banker. I just happened to be sitting at my desk, emailed it right up, and the banker went through all the numbers, and I try to be very conservative on income and expense numbers. Accurate on the expense, but conservative on more on the income to show that. And then the banker went through it, and he raised all the income projections that I had put in there. And, same way, the guy walked out with a check, happy as a lark. And I said, this is what it's about.
Yeah. But just because we have a plan, doesn't mean that plan is written in stone. We have to follow it a little bit, but we have to know when to make course corrections. And, the things that we think they're going to be in that plan sometimes don't work out. So we need to have kind of a plan B. And
absolutely.
I always tell new entrepreneurs that, those goals and those wishes that you think that you're going to get by, being an entrepreneur, that's one of them now calling. They don't know how to deal when mishaps occur.
Right.
And, I always tell people, I said, look, you know what, you can incorporate a lot of things into your business plan, and a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. I mean, there's, 26 other letters, pick one, but you should always have a plan for the plan because sometimes plan A never works. And, so I always include a couple different variables, options. And I think bankers like that because they want to see that you've looked at the whole big picture, that you've looked at, what could go wrong in your business, or what you're not actually looking at. I mean, are you looking at the big picture, or are you just looking at a tiny picture?
Mm-hmm.
And, so there's and Murphy's Law, anything that could go wrong will go wrong in your business because you're not prepared. So, I think it's always good to have entrepreneurs prepared. You want to expect success, but prepare for the worst.
Well, it is. And I like to have a conversation with anybody before we even sit down and start talking business plan. Tell me about your idea.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes their idea is better left just an idea, or it might be a good hobby, but it isn't going to make a difference when it comes to a business.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
Right.
And they don't do their research. And I've turned away people. I says, no, I won't be part to set you up to fail because it's not doing you any good.
Right.
If you want to do this, there's a little sideline over here that you can work out of your garage and have a little fun, but unless you can show me where there's a big market, I'm going to advise you against it. It's being honest with not only ourselves, but what we actually have and along with other people. And some of them just can't understand that. One lady asked her the question. I said, tell me about your business. She said, well, they told me I need a business plan, but what is it?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I think our conversation's done. But it is. It's one of those things that they don't have a clue.
Yeah, and
we'll run a business.
Yeah, the new generation coming in, you tell them, hey, you need a business plan. They're like, well, what for? All I'm going to do is make videos and put them on YouTube. No, that's not a business. That's a wish, because most people who make videos on YouTube, don't make any money. Sure, there's a few, but they have to be consistent every single day, and they're going to start off slow, and they're not going to get the traffic that you think right away. And some of these people have been making videos every day for 10 years and now finally starting to make money. It's a slow process.
long time in between. And it is, it's just that consistency that we tell it, that we put into this.
Yeah.
And the hard work is what pays off in the long run. If you do the work behind the scenes that nobody sees. And it's a lot of misconceptions. They think, oh, it's all fun and games being an entrepreneur.
Right.
I wish it was someday. But they don't see what we do behind the scenes and all the phone calls and emails and stuff. I'm so old school enough. I do snail mail. People look at me like I'm nuts, but hey, it's just the way I was raised, and you tie it all together. But it's a plan. It's a living, breathing document.
Mm-hmm. You know, I like in your book, chapter 4, you know, sharing your journey. You know, I always encourage entrepreneurs to share their stories, to share where they've been, to share their experiences, because, you know, that's what makes them unique. That's what makes them them. And, you know, when, you know, other entrepreneurs come to me and they say, well, Rob, you know, you've written all these books, you've done this, you've done that. And I said, yeah, but it's all based on my experience, you know, and, you know, when I share those experiences, when I share that journey with people, now they're more inclined to say, yeah, you know, I have good stories too. I want to share that. I want to share my journey with other people. And, you know, when you start to share that journey, people become more trusting of you, and they want to give you money, and they want to say, you know, I want you to help me, you know,
They see what you're all about as a person when you do that, and they, you know, get that inner view.
Yeah.
And I've always been that way when, you know, hey, let's talk about this, but when you set my goals and stuff, and, you know, the one story I put in there is with our goals with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
When I was first in the insurance business, you know, October 1 started bow archery deer season here in Michigan. So we left on Friday night, and we went north for and hunted all weekend and come home. My supervisor says, you know, why don't you tie that to your goals? And if you don't hit, you know, your goal, then you can't go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's a good idea to help keep. So I told my dad, and then he would call, said, I'll call you on Thursday. Then he says, then he started calling on Wednesday. He says, one week I was falling behind. Dad, I said, I can't go. He said, well, you better get your ass in gear because I'm not going by myself.
You know, and I'm just looking at that right here on page 36.
But, you know, it doesn't matter who you share it with. You know, and so Dad would always hold me accountable. I had to tell him no once, and I said, that's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just that little personal touch.
Yeah,
and
I
comment about that all the time when they read that book. Oh, yeah, I never thought about that. You know, it's sharing what we do.
Yeah, and I think we have to be accountable for what we do, and what, you know, because, you know, we can do these business plans all day long, but, you know, and granted, there are people that will pay to have a business plan created. They'll go to a bank, they'll get money, and then they'll never look at that business plan again. And then they'll wonder, why is my business failing? What am I doing? How come I'm paying back all this money and my business isn't generating any money? Because you're not being accountable, and you're not sticking to the plan. I mean, you paid big money to have this designed. Why aren't you? But, you know, they get distracted. They look at everything else.
I spoke to a group one night, a local business group. They asked me to come in and speak to, you know, 15, 20. And so as we got into this, and I'd asked them, I said, well, how many people know how much it costs them to put their key in the lock every day?
Mm-hmm.
People are looking at me like I was nuts. Well, they may have been, but guy sitting right in front of me, he says 10 haircuts.
Wow.
What? He said, took me 10 haircuts every day to pay my expenses for the day. He says, after that, it was profit. But he had figured it down. And a couple other people said, right now I'm going to go back and do some figuring and see exactly what it is. But that just sticks with me because everybody looked at him like he was, what do you mean 10 haircuts? But it's that simple as terms.
Mm-hmm.
And I love asking that of people that have been in business because most of them don't have a clue what their expenses are.
Yeah.
You know, they're paying an accountant or a staff person to do it, but they don't know that what they have to bring in every day.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I do, and it took me a long time to figure this out, you know, and you know, but always pay yourself first. Always put money aside. You know, I know so many entrepreneurs that, you know, they get money from sales or whatnot, and they go out and buy stuff right away. They don't think about the taxes, the implications. They don't think about themselves. They don't think. I'm like, well, first of all, you got to pay your rent or your mortgage, and you got to pay your utilities. You got to eat. So pay yourself first, and then whatever money's left over, you know, if you need equipment, buy it. If you, you know, but always put money aside for taxes, because at the end of the year, you're going to owe money, and now you have no money set aside, and you're going to panic. but they don't because, they get that glisten in their eye. They got money. They're going to go spend it.
Oh, without a doubt. And people realize because so many people have been an employee
Hmm.
and never had to worry about that. Well, after about 3 or 4 years in the insurance business, they switched us from employees to independent contractors. So, you learn all that stuff. You learn to
Yeah.
set aside. And so that's one of the things I always coach those people that are making that transition. Hey, well, your two best friends as an entrepreneur is going to be your attorney and your CPA.
Hmm.
Because without them, you're going to be sunk if you don't structure the business right and you don't set aside, as you said, that money for these taxes. I just was meeting with some people the other day, and they brought in a CPA to meet with their independent contractor team. Say, all right, these are all new people to this realm. Here's what you have to do. So he educated them at the time he hired them all. He brought in a group training.
Hmm.
I didn't know that. That was the way I looked at it when I first seen him. I had a manager at one point that we reported to that he was a astute businessman. And he had this budget. He brought his CPA in from Chicago to teach us all about budgeting. And he had all these different categories on his budget spreadsheet. I'm looking at that and it says, oh my gosh, I got to pay all that? And I'm about ready to just walk out of the business right then and there. No. This is general. You're only going to use a piece of this, but that, okay. But it's getting, like you say, how much are we going to put away first? How much we're going to have to set aside for taxes?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
a big learning curve.
yeah. You get that first tax bill as an entrepreneur and you haven't put money aside and the IRS sends you that letter. Oh, it'll be an eye opener and it'll be a very expensive life lesson too.
I had a sister that owned a trucking company. And we were all at my dad's one day and we're talking about the end of the year tax bills coming through. And my dad looks at both of us. He says, you guys each pay more in taxes than I was making. Dad, that comes with the territory,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people don't understand.
Oh, and another I think a pet peeve of mine is entrepreneurs giving away, their experience, giving away their services for cheap. You've spent a lifetime accumulating these skills. Charge accordingly. Don't be the cheapest guy in the room. In fact, probably you could raise your prices 50 to 100%, and you'd still make money. But they're afraid. They're afraid to raise their prices, and then they realize at the end of the year they have no money left over to even buy equipment.
That was one of my big struggles. I first started doing a lot of this consulting is I was always afraid that, well, if I'm too expensive, people aren't going to hire me. And it, sometimes there's a little density up here and people just know, just like you said, you've taken a lifetime. They're not paying for what you do. It's paying for what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then how you apply that. And I said, okay, now that makes sense. And so, yeah, it's started raising the prices up through there. Okay, I'm still getting work. Hey, I learned something on this. But there's the other piece is we never stop learning.
Yeah. And I think that one of the flaws I see in people now is being too politically correct, or being too nice, Hey, I was the nice guy for a long time, and I still have this image that I want to be the nice guy. But here's the thing: is that people need to see you as you are, not only in person, but on videos, on in articles and books. You have to resonate, that persona everywhere. And I'm a very sarcastic person. And my first couple books, I didn't let that sarcasm come out because I was, I wanted people just to buy the darn books. But as I started getting a reputation, of hey, I like your books. I started to come, the scammers books, the morons books. They're filled with sarcasm. They're filled with laughter. They're filled with. I've gotten more jobs off those books because I made people laugh.
Oh,
And so you got to be true to yourself. And I think that entrepreneurs are afraid to do that. They're afraid to let their personality shine. And but like attracts like, and so what you're going to do is you're going to attract the people that really like what you have to say.
Yeah, and I think that that's with a lot of us, especially you get into some of the trailing edge boomers like myself. That we're great. We were raised on the customer's always right.
Yeah.
And so it breaks that thought process. No, they're not always right. And reading through your Rob versus the Moron book, I said, oh, wait a minute. I got to use that line on the next one. But so many of them, we were on the same track. I'm sitting in there, I'm reading it. My wife and she says, what are you laughing at? I said, this is exactly some of the stuff that I've done over the years. It's one of those things that I like having fun.
Yeah.
I tell people, if you don't want to have fun and laugh, I'm not the guy for you.
Right.
When I had my insurance office, we had a Nerf gun at every desk.
That's great.
It's a tense business. And if it gets too bad one day, you whip that bad boy out, and it just breaks the tension. You have some laughs, you get the work done. And people, they're afraid because if they let their true feelings, like you said, people aren't gonna hire them.
Right.
It's how you get the job because it's the authentic you, and you're not portraying that you're this level here, and I'm like you. That's just here it is. If you don't like me, that's fine. If you like me, that's fine too.
Yeah, and not to bring politics into the picture, but it's the same thing that Trump does. He polarizes some people, but other people are like, wow, this guy's like the greatest hero. He says what he wants to say, and you know what, he's having a good time doing it, and not everybody agrees with it, and you're gonna get haters, but you gotta live the life on your terms, and stop being being so worried about what is PC and what is not.
I just you look at all the entrepreneurs through history that have been successful, and that's just the way they were. It's I'm going to tell you like it is.
Yeah. So how do people find you? Where do they go? Do you have a website that they can go to?
Yeah, they can go to businessplananswerman.com. And on there, I've got, they can actually download the first chapter from the bottom up.
Okay.
So what it is to put on through there. And I also, along with that, they can get a ultimate business checklist. You're thinking about starting a business. Here's some of the ideas that you got to knock off before you can start that business up.
Yeah.
So, and put your email, but there's a comments. My email's on there, all the social media feeds. That's the best place to do it because half the time I can't get to the phone or I'm in a spot where I don't answer it. So email is it.
I rarely ever answer my phone because half of it's scammers. Now, great, I use it for the material for the next book. But most people find me on Facebook. They find me on LinkedIn. They find me, they text me on WhatsApp. I can't even imagine. I can't even recall the last time someone actually called me. Most of the people are doing video chat like we're doing now, or they'll do it right through Facebook.
Oh yeah, we do that with a lot of the kids stuff. Thank goodness for technology. We wouldn't know our granddaughter.
Yeah. So you also have you were also in another book. This one,
right?
Journey to Success, and I haven't gotten a chance to read this one, but I did read your other one, and quickly tell us about this one.
Well, it's based on Napoleon Hill's 17 Success Principles.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Cunningham, who was one of the leading Hill strategists or authority, taught about the principles in the Hill realm, and he's put this together, and that's volume 1 of 9 before Tom passed.
Wow.
And it's basically, he got a hold of people that, how do those 17 success principles that Napoleon Hill wrote about in 1937 apply to our lives today?
Mm-hmm.
And so when he asked me to be part of that book, I jumped on it because when I first started the insurance, my supervisor that hired me gave me a copy of Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, I was hooked. And so, that's always been a part of my life. And so being part of something like that with 21 other people and talking about those same success principles, you learn about what the struggles that we went through in our life, what brought us to where we're at. So that's how that, I had a
Yep,
lot of fun.
and the foreword was written by Ben Gay, which I interviewed a while back, and he was one of Napoleon Hill's proteges, and he's really funny.
Oh, I sat next to Ben for 2.5 days one year. I didn't know who he was until he got up and introduced him to speak. And I tell him the story. I've got to know Ben now a little bit, and just love chatting with the man because the last living protege of Napoleon Hill,
Mm-hmm.
and we were sitting there at the last Tony Robleski boot camp that he spoke at. Ben, man, that first time we met, we're sitting here at this table, and I get to mastermind with Ben Gay III. You know, so once I figured out got to know who he was, and man, I didn't know all about you. Got to speak, and I'm sitting there, man, I've been talking to you for 2.5 days. But it's those little gems that we listen to.
Yeah.
And so Ben is one of those down to earth guys you'd never know his history if he didn't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Just so when that book came about, I said, who we're going to get to write the foreword? I said, it can only be one person. And they all jumped up. We all, Ben, so they got, oh yeah. And so Ben says, yep, I'm in it. And they're over the different series. They've had some other notable successful speakers and entrepreneurs write forwards. I think Brad wrote the forward to one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Us and some of these other people, I can't think of all they are. I've got most of them on Kindle, but that whole group is how these principles affect us.
Yeah.
And it's worth to read on any of them if you can get them, but you can't go wrong with those principles.
Well, everyone, this is what makes David an e-hero. And so go out and get his book From the Bottom Up. It's a great read. I think you'll appreciate everything that's in here. And I think that, even if you've been an entrepreneur for 25 years like I have, there's stuff in here that'll still, you'll be going, why didn't I do that? So grab his book. And again, David, share your website again, and
it's businessplanAnswerman.com.
there it is. So
It's easy.
We'll see you guys on the next podcast. And thank you, David.
Thank you, Rob, for having me on.